figure it out.
Alrighty, well everybody, I want to thank you for coming to the first Fangirl panel at Eucon. I am very, very excited to have you here. So I gotta ask, raise of hands for who knows what Fangirl Radio and Fangirl Magazine is. Yay! So I'm going to give you a little info on what we do and what we are. My name is Jessica Dwyer, and I've been writing in the entertainment industry for about 12 years now, 13 years. And I started Fangirl Magazine about that time, like 13 years ago, as a place, because at that time, women in geekdom and fandom didn't really have a voice. You basically heard about guys doing this stuff, and if it came to like something like the horror industry, you were a scream queen. They didn't think about women as directors or writers. And then people like Catherine Bigelow came along, who won the first Best Directing Oscar as a woman ever, and this is the woman that did Near Dark, which a lot of people don't realize, which is one of the best vampire movies of the 80s. But I digress. So Fangirl Magazine came from this need I saw to have a voice for the female fans and female creators out there. And about 10 or 12 years later, here we are, and women have blossomed in geekdom, and it makes me happy to see. And we have grown ourselves. We went from Fangirl Magazine to having Fangirl Radio, which is an online radio broadcast and podcast. And in that time, we've had some of the biggest names in the industry on our show. We've interviewed the entire Walking Dead cast. We've had Norman Reedus on. Greg Nicotero is a fan of the show and a friend of the show. We've had Doug Jones. We've had Doctor Who people on. And we've had female creators as well, which is awesome. And now we have branched out into our YouTube channel. And here we are at Eucon with our booth. You can come over and talk to us. We'd love to talk to you about our stuff. And in that time, I've interviewed a lot of people. These gals are with me. This is Jessie. She's my new girl. This is Sarah. She's my co-host. And we love doing this. We love meeting fans. And myself, I've been writing, like I said, for a while now. I've worked with Horror Hound Magazine since issue 2, doing their stuff. And really, it's not just about us. It's about fangirls, period. We love celebrating the female fan and showing that we know just as much as the boys do. And it's really important to me because it seems like, I know there's probably a lot of fans of The Big Bang Theory out there, but when your episode
notice the grimace.
Yeah, when you have an
really
episode, yeah, when you have an episode that's based around the shock and awe of a woman walking into a comic book store, I really have a problem with that, and I don't like that because there shouldn't be any shock and awe. I mean, we know as much as you do. We buy more than you probably do, and you should respect us and be happy we're there and not be like, oh my God, what is this mythical creature that is walking in this room with this flowing hair, and what are those?
It has happened, and it's happened to me on several occasions, and it's always very uncomfortable, and we don't discriminate, like, we have fanboys on the show as well, who are our co-hosts and stuff, and we just want everybody to feel like they are allowed to come up to the plate and talk about it, and if you're on board with that, then we're on board with it.
Well, and the other part of that too, it's not just being affirmative, it's also finding. I grew up in Southern Illinois. I told this story to a young girl who's a creator that came over to my area, who's a writer, and she's timid about, it seems like she's timid about what she's doing, and I wanted her to know that don't be timid. Be powerful with your voice. And I'm going to quote Lady Gaga from American Horror Story here.
Yes, ma'am.
And that is, goddesses don't whisper, goddesses scream. And that's what you need to do as an artist and a creator, and make sure that they know you're there. Don't be afraid. You're not going to mess up. but it's about being affirmative. And when I see these little girls, like there was a little girl dressed as Batgirl that came over to our area, and I'm not kidding, she's probably like 6, and she's doing video reviews on YouTube of products. She's wanting to write comics, and when I see that, her dad brought her over to the booth, and he's like, I want her to talk to you so you can tell her about what you do. And I was like, I cried a little bit. I'm like, okay. And I told her, I'm like, no, you keep it up. You do this. This is, keep doing this. This is great. You're starting so young. I started so old. Oh my God. You're gonna stab me in the back someday. You're gonna attack me. But so I'm very lucky in the fact that I found people like Jessie here, who is amazing, and she's doing interviews for us now. She just went up to Halloween Town in Salem, and it was great.
So hi folks, I'm Jessie. I'm the other Jessie, and I've been with the magazine for like a couple months now, and it's just, I keep telling Jessica it's basically a wish granting factory. I ask her, hey, there's this person coming to town, and they're like kind of famous, and I really like their face. Can I go talk to them? And Jessica's like, here's an interview room, and I'm like, okay, just gonna go cry in a hole for a little bit and then figure out how to talk to people.
And then I found Sarah here. I met at it was Riff Tracks. It was a Riff Tracks, and she's like, I like comics, and
it was like 4 years ago too. Yeah. Now, I've been with
now
the
she's
show
making
for like 4
movies
years.
About Doctor Who.
Yep.
That's her TARDIS outside, by the way.
Yeah. So if you guys have been on the show floor to see the TARDIS, that is my TARDIS.
Yeah.
That was, yeah.
And
so.
tomorrow we're going to be showing her movie here that she did called Inside a Blue Box, which is based all about TARDIS builders and why people love it so much. And I'm in it because when I was 10, I can't remember, I think I was 10, my sister is a Whovian, and she's 11 years older than me, and she fell in love with Tom Baker. And she got to kiss him. She kissed Tom Baker when she was like 18. Yeah, so she had my dad build to the spec of the technical manual a TARDIS for her that's bookshelves, which she still has. And I'm going to have it when she's dead. Unless she had...
For 11 years.
I'll still have it. My like old folks home. It's mine. But yeah, so these are the kind of people I love, because they're creative and they're not afraid, and they're women, and it's awesome to see that happen, even though we still have some places to go with it. I mean, we've heard about Gamergate, we've heard about all that horrible crap that was.
I think we got death threats for the show for that. Yeah,
we did get a couple of nice
we got
little
a couple
tweets.
death threats on Twitter for that. Yeah,
but
thanks,
you know,
guys. But
and my husband asked me, he's like, well, are you going to let it make you afraid, or are you going to let it empower you? And I'm like, going to be denied what I love by someone like that. That's what I love. I'll die for it. I don't care. That's a dark way to go with this panel. But it's one of those
Have a
things.
nice day.
It's one of those things. It's like, you're not going to deny me what I love just because I'm a woman. And so, that's where I'm at in regards to that kind of thing. And I think we've grown a lot since that. But I would love to have you guys have a chance to ask questions if you'd like because I've got some stories to tell. We've done a lot of things throughout the years that we've been doing this. And if you guys have questions, I'd love to answer them for you. I don't think they took the mic. So if you have questions, feel free to raise your hand, and we'll love to answer them for you. Don't be afraid.
I'm the mom. I'm gonna make sure.
Please. Can you sound? Sorry if this is a rude question, but how do you feel about the hypocrisy and double standards with men as well? Like, if a man makes a sexualized woman with big boobs and stuff like that, he's a sexist. He's this, he's that. But if a woman makes an over-sexualized man and stuff like freaking tons of abs and stuff and a big bulge in his pants, that's completely okay. No backlash at all. What do you think about that?
Oh, I've written several essays on this.
I'm going to let Sarah take this first. This is her.
Yeah, so at University of Oregon, I am a folklorist and cultural anthropologist, and what I study is popular culture and all this kind of questions. And there's, right now, what you're saying, there's a huge dialogue about that, about, you know, kind of a double standard in sexualization, and is that fair, and is that, you know, right? The easy answer to that, because we could sit here all day and talk about that, but the easy answer to that is we can't draw a line and say that sexuality is bad, because everybody is entitled to be. I mean, I'm sorry if this is getting into a little more like for people with kids in the room, a little older commentary, but we all should be allowed to have an own sexuality. And the question is whether or not the person who is being sexualized is making that decision. And I think that if you're sexualizing a man, and he has, like, even a fictional character, sometimes it gets a little weird. You know, if you're over-sexualizing a man and he's not really having a choice in that, that's not okay. And if you're over-objectifying and sexualizing a woman, that's also not okay. But then again, there's a lot of people who express their sexuality in those terms, and it really just has to go like on an individual basis. It's very hard to put an umbrella on statements like that's sexist, because you have to kind of identify what is and isn't about it. And I think that's where a lot of like the internet dialogues about it get like so incredibly convoluted, because it's like people are like, they over-objectify, and then people are like, that's sexist, but nobody's asking why is it, or when does it become, you know, somebody who is comfortable and empowered in their own sexuality. So.
Thoughts?
I think that basically covers it. I mean, I feel like it's good question, for sure. Oh, yes, right
Hello.
there. Hello.
Hello. You guys all look fantastic.
Seriously.
I am
like, not just the ones who are in
impressed.
costume, like everyone's
Yeah.
pretty, but you did good.
Okay, so what's your favorite celebrity interview you ever did?
Oh, it's like asking about my favorite kid.
I have an answer because I've only done 2.
You go first, yeah, you go second, and I'll think about it.
She's got the stories. I've done 2 thus far with Fangirl, and one of them was just recent. It was Georgina Haynes from Leica. She's the head of production and head supervisor of creativity at Leica Studios. And she's wonderful and British, and she reminds me of my aunt, but in a good way, and I like her. And she's the first interview that was like, you have done interviews before, and you really know how to answer these questions in very lengthy and wonderful ways. And so that was fun. I did get very, very, very scared beforehand, though. But my first one I ever did was, as Jessica mentioned, I recently got to go up to Halloween Town in St. Helens, Oregon. And before that, just show of hands, who saw Halloween Town? It's a Disney Channel original movie from, my people, there you are. So that was my childhood right there. I had a very interesting relationship with buses after that, because I always thought that if I saw one on Halloween night, then like, all likelihood I'm going to Halloween Town. And then I wasn't allowed to go out by myself for a little bit. But before that, I asked Jessica, hey, I'm really wanting to go up. They do this every year. They rebuild the set, but Kimberly J. Brown, who played Marnie, the main Lil Witch from that movie, she got to come to St. Helens this year, and I asked Jessica, is there any chance whatsoever that I could maybe talk to her while I'm there for like 8 seconds? And Jessica's like, here's her phone number, take as much time as you want, and ask her anything you feel like. And she was lovely, and it was all beautiful. It was all beautiful.
Oh, me? Oh gosh, once you get to 30, you realize that you've done like so much in your life already that like it starts getting hard to like recall a lot of things, and you just it's so much. I've had so many wonderful opportunities in my life, and I'm ever so grateful for them. I'd have to say, and for those of you who saw my last panel, you heard my spiel about how while I get torn between, do I go with historic favorites or do I go with, things that very recently have started. And I tend to go for the things that recently have really been fun or affected me in a good or bad way, I guess. As I haven't had a bad interview yet, but it could happen. So I would have to say in the past year, my favorite interview that I've done, it wasn't really an interview. We got to record our Halloween special with Mark Meir and Doug Jones. And
the voice of Commander Shepard from Mass Effect.
Mark Meir is the voice of Male Shep from Mass Effect. And oh my God, working actually, and we did like a little old radio drama style. Every year at Halloween we do an old radio drama. And we got Mark Meir and Doug Jones signed on to do it this year with us. And just recording with Mark Meir, who does voice acting for a living, is astounding. Because, like, I'm really familiar with theater and I'm really familiar with, like television acting and obviously filmmaking. But voice acting, my God, is it a horse of a different color? It is, and Mark was just like so rose to the challenge.
He made Cthulhu sound effects with his mouth to make, and then he put chanting in there.
And he was like, and it was great because I remember we're sitting there and we're recording and he's like, so this is like a Cthulhu monster, right? And we're like, yeah, it's a Cthulhu monster.
Is
of
that
course,
H.P.
Mark Meir.
Lovecraft?
And he's like, well, so it's like more of a wet monster noise. And so he made a wet monster
And it
noise
was
with
like,
his
and I'm
mouth.
like, do you have tentacles coming out of your mouth now?
Yeah, no, it was like,
and,
so.
And I just sat there and I'm listening and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be directing him.
And it was so much fun because Jessica and I are just sitting there with our fingers on our mute buttons,
Giggling
because
like
we're like
freaks.
laughing so hard because it was so much, and it was a blast. And just doing those radio specials, like even when we get the chance to act in them, is such a treat because there's so much fun.
Oh, it was so funny too, was Doug Jones decided to hop on at the same time, so he's just listening to this. And I made a comment like, I'm sure Doug thinks we're just nuts right now. And if you don't know who Doug Jones is, he's Pan's Labyrinth. He's the fawn.
monster.
He's Abe Sapien.
He recently in Crimson Peak played
As
two
both
of the ghosts.
Yeah, he's the Silver Surfer.
He's in everything Guillermo del Toro
Anything
does.
Del Toro, he's got him in there.
Full body makeup.
The
He was
Strain.
in Buffy as one of the silent men.
And I would I love this man so much. He's one of the sweetest, nicest men in Hollywood.
He's
and
probably one of your favorite actors, and you
just
don't even
don't know
realize
it.
it because he's
And-
always got a mask.
And what was funny was I say that and he goes, "Oh, are you kidding? This is great!" he's like loving it.
Sweetest man in the world.
He's
too,
loving
yeah.
hearing Mark do this with his mouth, and Mark goes, "Well, I'm a fan of you too." And you hear Mark Meir geek out a little that he's talking to Doug Jones.
He
and I'm like,
he totally
"This is
geeked
so
out about
cute."
Doug Jones. It was
I just love
it was
it.
fun. It was a fun experience.
For me personally, for my favorite interview, it's really hard to pick. I would say probably one of the coolest, most intimidating ones I've ever done was Sir Anthony Hopkins. And I got him for the Wolfman, and he started spouting off poetry while I was listening to him on the phone, and I'm thinking, I'm supposed to stop you because you're Anthony Hopkins and you're saying poetry, and I want to hear your voice. That's all I'm gonna do. And then he did a shout out for my mom because I asked him to. But one of the sweetest ones and one that meant the most to me was David Tennant.
It's gonna make me cry again. I tell you, stop
And
bringing this one up.
I'm not going to say that story. I'm not
Okay.
saying that story. This was after that happened.
Jessica makes me cry. You can come and see it tomorrow. No, you can come and see it tomorrow in the film. She has a beautiful Doctor Who story, and I still cry every time I watch my own film that I've seen
I don't mean to
10
make
million
people
times
cry.
and I've spent hours and hours and hours on the editing room floor with, and I try and just like gloss over that part while I'm working because otherwise I'm just a mess.
I did make David Tennant cry when I met him. because I told him.
But
why.
tomorrow.
But I won't.
We'll hear that.
You'll
story.
get to cry tomorrow.
Yeah.
No.
So, happy story.
Yeah. So when I interviewed David Tennant, it was for Fright Night, and I was the only writer in North America to get him for an interview. And when it was funny, this is what happens when you're a writer and for a magazine. You get a random phone call at 9 o'clock in the morning from Disney saying, "Hey, you want to talk to David Tennant in an hour?" No, not at all. So I'm like, holy crap, I have to prepare. And oh my God, I'm hyperventilating now because I'm talking to David. And what's the coolest part about this interview was how David Tennant he was, firstly, because hello, you know, like the great, you can hear it. But it was, he did it after having been doing rehearsals all day for Much Ado About Nothing with Catherine Tate. And if you've not seen that,
Go do that.
go do that. It's on digital theater. You can watch it, and it's one of the best Shakespeare adaptations. They took 80s music and then put the lines of Shakespeare to 80s music throughout it. And he shows up in drag as Miss Piggy, and it's awesome.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. But he did this interview with me, and we ended up geeking out together over Roddy McDowall. You know, Caesar from Planet of the Apes, the beautiful man, love him, my boy, Roddy McDowall. And we started talking about him, and I told him, I'm like, you're the only guy I could see taking over a role of Peter Vincent from a guy like Roddy, and he was really touched by that. And he proceeded to ask me this question, and I proceeded to admit to slight piracy in front of Disney, who was listening in to the phone call.
Whoops.
Because he goes, oh, Jessica, there was a show that he did that I used to watch. They went through portals, and I'm like, oh, it's Fantastic Journey, and yeah, I have it on my computer. And he goes, but before I told him I had it on my computer, he goes, does that hold up? Is that out on DVD? Can I get that? And I'm like, yes, I have it on my computer. And I'm like, I'll make you a DVD. And he's like, oh, will you? You know, it's like,
and the moral of the story is that not even Disney can say no to David Tennant.
Exactly. I'm like, oh God, do they own the rights? I think that was shown on ABC. Oh crap, they own ABC. But David Tennant is a geek, and that is amazing too. That's part of the reason why he's one of my favorite. It's hard. I love 12, as is evident by my attire, but I love 10. 10.
I really feel like we should stop like demanding people pick a favorite doctor.
You can't.
Because you can't.
Can't.
I mean, you can have one that you're really emotionally attached to. Like I was talking about in our romance panel. Like you gain a certain attachment to the one who's playing the character trope that you most are attracted to. But we should just stop this nonsense about being like, oh yeah, but which one do you like best?
I can't.
They all like each other. They all work together. They're all humans. They don't want you to hate each other, any one of the doctors.
And also, point of fact, if you go to our YouTube page, you can listen to that interview because I put the audio up for David Tennant because it's one of my favorites. But I mean, that interview is one of them. I love talking to Jeffrey Combs because I can get that man to rant. I love talking to him. I've interviewed Norman Reedus, and it was before Daryl Dixon really got big in the show, and it was fascinating to talk to him about.
I know, we're like,
Daryl. Do not mention Daryl. Daryl comes for us.
He's with us.
It's fascinating to hear him talk about the character before he became the massive draw of the show that he was, because we talk about in the interview, and that's on our show, about how I asked him, how do you feel about this fandom and how it's kind of like what Daryl's relationships, and he's like, and he starts describing about how Daryl Dixon would the first time Daryl ever has sex on the show and what it will be like, and I'm like, wow, never got you to talk about that. But and then he talks about how he was like, I want him to have an abused childhood, and you see now later on in the show when he interacts with Merle and all of that, he did. And that's all Norman Reedus, like giving input on this character and wanting him to be that way. It's fascinating stuff. And that's why I think he's a great actor. And
So it's really, in closing, it's really hard for me to pick one because there's good stuff I can find in all of them. I mean, we've had I love talking to Greg Nicotero because we're both geeks. I got to talk to Peter Capaldi at San Diego Comic-Con and proceeded to
Stalk him.
It's a lie. That only happened once, and it was how I got into the thing. And I'm
it's just kind of.
It's not stalking if I only did it once.
I only did it once.
I think it's like the rule of 3 though, and it was 3. So I think
it was not. No, we kept running into each other, and it was hilarious.
Kept running into each other
Hey, shut up.
at San Diego Comic-Con.
We did. It was so funny too.
I just happened to have a copy of the schedule, and we just happened to keep running into each other. It's not that big of a deal.
It's a lie. It's all a lie. You can't prove anything. But it was funny because when I saw him there, and it was at the Lego Dimensions thing, and they couldn't get rid of him. This is a good story. Lego Dimensions had this big thing at Comic-Con on Wednesday of this year when it started, and they had Jenna Coleman, Stephen Moffat, and Peter Capaldi there. She looks like she's about to cry. Don't cry. It's okay. It's okay.
She's all right.
It's okay. He's a beautiful man. He's got great hair. That hair is real. That hair is real.
Stop touching people's
I
hair,
didn't touch
Jessica.
it. I didn't touch it. I would have asked first. I didn't touch it. I did hold his hand. So I'm like, okay, we're gonna go to this Lego Dimensions thing. I get in, and there he is on stage, and I got in late, and they have his name in big. I'm like, oh my God, the doctor's here. So I'm like about to pass out because I'm like nervous, but then I hear the people talking that were running it, and they're like, we can't get him to leave. He won't go. We've got a car here, and he won't leave. And it's because he was so about the fans, and just he wouldn't go. He was doing it. In his mind, because he's such a big fan himself, he's a huge fan of Doctor Who. He's a huge, like, I'm watching him do these, like, questions. I'm like, that's a lightweight question for Peter Capaldi to ask or answer, and he's like, boom, he's like asking him, who would you like to have come back on the show? And he goes, Azael, the one, and it's from this Doctor Who episode of John Pertwee's called The Daemons, and he's naming these characters off. So anyway, so the Lego people couldn't get him to leave, and so I get up there to him. And at this point, I'm going to tell you another part of this story, because me and Peter Capaldi, we have a thing. When he was first announced as the Doctor, a friend of mine on Tumblr put together this book of letters and things for Peter Capaldi, and they sent it to him.
I know the story.
And he knows the story. You guys don't, but they do, and they're like, God, shut up, Jessica. But we sent it off to him, and he sends back to the girl that sent it within a few months individual envelopes for everybody that submitted something in this book, along with the postage, to mail these things to them as a thank you. And what he had done was he put a little headshot in there and signed it, and then he took a postcard of him doing that, that pose.
Yeah.
The pose.
The like promo photo pose.
Yeah. And he painted them and drawn little Daleks on them, and then wrote these little things. And he sent them to her and said, here, you know their addresses, here's postage to cover it, mail these out for me, please, and thank you so much. So, before I'd even done that, I know. So from the HBO EMI, I think it was, video cassette release of the Doctor Who and the Daleks with Peter Cushing, I had a poster that was about 25 years old, and I mailed it to him. A year later, I get a thank you note from him in his own hand, and I could tell because I'm like, my God, he actually addressed this himself, that he wrote my name the same way on both. So when I met him, I went up to him and I'm like, I just want to say, I told him, I'm like, a year later you sent me this thing, so thank you. And he's like, and he looked embarrassed, and then he starts apologizing because he's like, I try to get all of them, I blah blah blah. I'm like, no, it's okay. You did it. I don't. The fact that you did it's amazing. And then I said, I'm a huge Peter Cushing fan, and I know you are too, because I don't know if you know this. Peter Capaldi was a geek growing up, huge geek, massive geek. Had all the autographs from all the doctors, 1, 2, 3, 4. He was very good friends with John Pertwee and Sean Pertwee. And he grew up with like all these autographs. He had autographs from Peter Cushing and stuff like that. And he burned it all because he was also bullied. And he thought burning this stuff would get rid of the stigma and get the teachers even that were bugging him about it to stop. And it didn't. So my thing was when I sent him the poster, I said, I know what happened with you, and I don't know if you had something like this, but I just wanted to give it to you. I hope you take it in the way it was meant. And so I told him I'm a huge Hammer horror fan. I love Peter Cushing and all this stuff. And he goes, come over here. We're going to talk about Peter Cushing. And he grabs me and pulls me up to the thing, and I'm just like, okay. And he proceeds to tell me, I don't know if you've heard in the news, that he's having knee surgery. And the reason, he told me about this, the reason he was hurt, and he said, I met Matt Smith the first day and he was on crutches. And he said, this show's gonna destroy your knees. And sure enough, he's having to have the same surgery that Matt Smith was having. And the reason for that is, he says, it's because of Peter Cushing. I can't do his voice, it's too good. But he's like, it's because of Peter Cushing. I have to live up to Peter Cushing. And he's like signing autographs while he's doing this. I'm like, okay, how was that, sir? How were you living? What happened? Did you like jump off a building? What did you do? And he says, you know that scene in Horror of Dracula where he runs across the table and he rips down the curtains? Well, that wasn't in the script. That was Cushing. He says, I had to run across the table. And the director said, okay. So I have to live up to that. And I hurt myself. And I'm like, and now I'm having to have surgery. And I'm like, well, don't do that. You know? And it was
method acting.
Method acting. He was doing some stuff, you know, and he hurt himself. But you know, it's not an age thing. Matt Smith did it too. But it was so cool to talk to him about that. And I asked him point blank. I said, okay, I know you're friends with John. You were friends with John Pertwee, and you're friends with Sean, who, by the way, is in the last episode of The Three Musketeers with him, but they didn't get a scene together. But he's wearing black leather, so you should watch it. He's the guy that plays Alfred on Gotham, by the way, and he's the son of the Third Doctor. So I asked Capaldi point blank, I said, what do you think about having Sean play the Third Doctor in like a crossover of Doctors episode of the show? And he goes, I think that's a great idea. I'm for that. That's great. Because, you know, he's doing all this stuff. Like, he's trolling the fandom by doing things like he's dressing up as his dad for Halloween and looks just like him. And I'm like, we don't need crappy CG. We have a real, honest-to-God clone of John Pertwee that we can use. So anyway, I guess that was a long-winded answer to a question. Anybody else?
Any other questions?
Yeah.
We have a microphone, so you don't have to just shout at us.
Feel free to ask questions. I've got stories like that that I can share.
Many stories.
You want a Walking Dead story?
I was actually thinking, talking about interviews we've done that were really important was our Tim Sullivan, Count Yorga.
It
was amazing.
Sarah and I did I don't know if any of you all are fans of old school, like exploitation, horror films from the 70s and kind of thing. There's a great one called Count Yorga.
Yes.
And there's The Return of Count Yorga, and this gentleman by the name of Robert Corey is kind of the unsung Vincent Price of American horror films. He had this gorgeous voice. He was a beautiful man. And he played a really amazing vampire in these movies.
He's very compelling. And if you're a fan of film, or a student who's like studying film, I highly recommend Count Yorga because it is like they did such creative things with it.
And it's a low budget movie, but he channels this kind of old school horror actor, like classy thing in it, and it's amazing. It's an amazing movie. They did a sequel, and then they did kind of a spin-off called The Death Master. And so Tim Sullivan, who is
Tim Sullivan?
Who is Tim Sullivan? Tim Sullivan is the director of a movie called Detroit Rock City that you might know, which is a Kiss throwback flick.
And who's Kiss, Jessica? I'm going off kind of maybe like
who doesn't,
I'm making judgments about our audience.
Who doesn't know who Kiss is? Does anyone not know who Kiss is? Gene Simmons, Paul Stanley, Ace Frehley.
I Want to Rock and Roll All Night.
Peter Criss.
Party
Nobody
every
wants
day.
to admit
He
this.
also
It's
did a
okay.
movie called 2001 Maniacs, and he's a horror director.
And he's a fun, kitschy director.
He's a fun and kitschy director, and so Tim came on the show, and we did a tribute to Robert Quarry. And what ended up happening with that episode was this company called, I guess it's Midnight Release. I think it's Midnight
something
Release,
like that.
something
Yeah.
like that. They did a Blu-ray release of Count Yorga, and they asked to use our episode on the Blu-ray as an extra. So we have out there on the Count Yorga Blu-ray is our tribute episode to Robert Quarry. It was
in which me, Jessica, and Tim Sullivan all are reduced to tears.
we do we bawled.
It's and it's kind of like the way the podcast is formatted is a much more kind of intimate hangout atmosphere, which I found really has allowed us to cry with people.
The
a
Leonard
lot.
Nimoy tribute we
Yeah,
did was
we
a
were
horrible
also
thing that
bawling.
I never want to do again.
Sobbing and I don't know what it is, but you and I are really bad at making people cry. Like,
Oh, we got a 5-minute warning. So anybody else have a question? Because we can keep talking.
can
about
ask
this.
us anything.
Yeah, ask us anything.
We
Where
got
the best
we got
place
stuff.
to
We got
eat
fan
is
fiction. We got
here.
other things.
5 minutes seems like a good question.
I don't know why we have to.
Okay, we've got one there
Okay,
and one there.
Okay,
we'll
rapid
get
fire.
to the lady
Yeah.
in front first.
Yeah.
and
Friend
then
in the
we'll get to
plaid.
you,
Yeah,
and then
plaid. Come on up to the mic. It's actually working. We
Or
got
just
to do
yell.
it.
Whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
What's your first OTP?
My first OTP of all time was Barbara Gordon and Dick Grayson.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they are mine, and everything about them is beautiful.
I'm old. What's an OTP?
One true pairing, my friend. On
Oh my God.
on Fangirl, I
She's the
run.
guru of the fanfic.
I run a little side niche called I Ship It, and it's a fanfic recommendation service / eventually probably like my feelings about fan fiction and why I think it's important and representation and things and stuff, and man, I like Barbara and Dick. They're great.
You
Current-
said very first.
My very yes. Your
Very first was myself and George Clooney when I was like 7.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with that. Myself and Carl Kolchak, the Night Stalker. I was so young. I actually recorded video cassettes.
She has
with
very
me.
healthy relationships.
I know. Darren McGavin, the alcoholic, put upon writer guy. I will say this. About fanfic. I write fanfic, and because I find it fun. I'm allowed. Damn it. And I will tell you what I was surprised by. Out of all the fic I've written, the A-Team is the most popular one that I've done because I love me some Shalto Copley, and I love that movie. I love Bradley Cooper in it. I love the whole thing. I love the original show, but I had like, how many likes on this one? I started, and I'm quite surprised.
Let's get to
Okay,
it.
let's go.
All right,
Let's go.
hand up,
The
we're still
blue
interested.
Blue shirt.
How do you go about getting yourself self-published?
You just do it.
You just
do
you
it.
go
You throw
online.
books at
You
people.
go online. You can search for it, but there's ways to do it. Amazon.com has it. You can find independent publishing houses are also a good way to go. There's a lot of those.
Submit things to Fangirl Radio.
And submit things to-
Fangirlmag.com.
Submit
Yeah.
things to us, and we'll
Please do.
We'll review it, and
Yeah.
we'll have you. We'll do an artist spotlight on you. We did one on a wonderful gentleman who's actually his booth is behind us. Like if you're facing us, he's over here. His name's Tommy, and he's got some amazing 8-bit artwork.
That's where our booth was.
Oh, we are okay. You know where the photo ops are?
Yeah.
We're right across from it. And feel free to come over. I've got books that I'm selling there that I've written. We got stickers. I'm giving away free autographs, free photos, and we have buttons. And yeah, just come on over, and you can play Find the Stuff Hidden in Our Logo. 'Cause there's
There's a
stuff
lot.
hidden in
That
our
sounds
logo.
dirty, Jessica.
Hey.
This is a fan.
That's a question.
What is your username for FFN?
Oh God, it's really hard. Jessica Dwyer.
Okay.
I'm sorry. It was. I've been on there a long time. I took some down because it was bad fic. I've grown as a writer.
I recently found my first fan fiction at my mom's house. It's written on notebook paper from 1996, and it's Sailor Moon.
Yeah. No,
There's a lot of boys.
I actually was the first Darth Maul fanfic in the Estrogen Brigade. Way back, and I got to tell that to Ray Park. I said, I wrote the first fan with that girl club of that loved Darth Maul, and goes, the Estrogen Brigade. And I'm like, my God, you know who we are.
I think the Goonies are going to chase us out now.
Are the Goonies chasing us out?
If you would like to talk to Jessica or any of us more, please come by the Fangirl booth. Come to the screening tomorrow at 1 in this room.
One more question. Question. Yes.
How does it feel to get paid to be a fangirl?
Oh,
I don't get paid a lot. You don't get paid. No.
It's for the love of the craft.
You really don't get paid a lot to do this, and I don't get paid anything to do the fangirl stuff, and neither do these girls. We do it out of love. I am a paid writer, but you don't get paid a lot to be a writer.
It pays in
experience.
a different way to follow your passion.
No, I never in a million years thought I'd be a talking head up on a stage at a convention. My first con, Michael Dorn was at, as Next Gen was on.
He's gonna get you.
I know he's gonna get me.
All right,
All right, guys.
Need to let the room
come to our booth. Thank you.